What's up, everybody, and welcome to ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. You can always join us over at InsideTheGame.ca. Those podcast services, thanks to our friends over at Fired Up Network, YouTube at Inside the Game Official, and of course those TV streaming platforms around the world. We're talking about Roku, Amazon Prime, ESTV, Jinx Esports TV Canada, and a whole lot more. Scott, ITG Daily is about the hottest news. What do we have on today's show?
Well, today we have a big banger of a first article, and that is Microsoft wins the FTC fight to buy Activision Blizzard. We'll have to see where that goes, but we also have information. Evan Wells has announced his retirement from Naughty Dog after quite a lengthy career. We have Craig Mazin removing himself from the Borderlands movie credits. Interesting situation. And will there be possible Final Fantasy 16 DLC? Might be have more on that.
Oh man, so much to talk about, so let's go. Let's dive in. Scott, topic number one is definitely a big title. This has been a big move and an ongoing discussion that feels like it just never ends, but we're finally getting somewhere as Microsoft wins the FTC fight to buy Activision Blizzard. This is Tom Warren over at The Verge. A California judge is allowing Microsoft to close its acquisition of Activision Blizzard after 5 days of grueling testimony. Microsoft still faces an ongoing antitrust case with the Federal Trade Commission, but Judge Jacqueline Scott Corley has listened to arguments from both the FTC and Microsoft and decided to deny the regulator's request for a preliminary injunction. In a ruling submitted just yesterday, Judge Corley said the following, quote, Microsoft's acquisition of Activision has been described as the largest in tech history. Well, it is $67 billion after all, Scott. It's not something we kind of sneeze at.
I think it really is the largest in tech history.
It is massive. It deserves scrutiny. That scrutiny has paid off. Microsoft has committed in writing, in public, and in court to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for 10 years. On parity with Xbox. I'm telling you right now, it goes 10 years day one, boom, exclusive to Xbox. That's what's going to happen here. I don't think it'll last after the 10-year mark, and you'll have Call of Duty just on Xbox. They did the same thing with Bethesda, right? Don't forget, not too long ago, they purchased Bethesda for $7 billion, which at that time we thought was just a massive move. And now we're Starfield, exclusive to Xbox. I'm just saying, right? This is where we're coming from. But it made an agreement with Nintendo to bring Call of Duty to Switch. Yo, anybody else find that kind of comical? I'm laughing, Scott. What do you think of that one running on Switch?
Yeah, I'm wondering how that's going to happen, and if they were, if they had to quote parody. Because how do you keep that similar? How do you keep them all together? It seems like that's going to be the biggest undertaking forward.
Absolutely. So either we're getting a second Switch here real soon, like very soon in this case, or Nintendo's introducing some kind of cloud service, which then allows Microsoft to use the Xbox Cloud and come in that way with xCloud to then bring over Call of Duty onto the Switch. Dude, that's the only way the thing's gonna run. And then it probably won't be on parity because not everybody's internet is at top speed to run a Twitch shooter. Dude, you gotta be like fast reflexes for this thing. And it's just not gonna, oh, man, I don't know. Yeah, we'll see how it goes, but I'm definitely optimistic whether or not it's gonna run properly on the Switch. And as I continue here, let's get back into this long, lengthy article. It entered several agreements for the first time bringing Activision content to several cloud gaming services. Dude, when this came up, we're just kind of constantly interject here, Scott, as this article, because it is very, very long. But
there's many parts to it.
Absolutely. Dude, they came out and said, we're going to put Call of Duty on this cloud service, this cloud service, this cloud. I'm like, man, Stadia A is losing out right now because they could have had Call of Duty, right? Think about this. Like, Stadia was the leading charge here for cloud gaming and the whole streaming platform. This could have worked just fine for them with their streaming service. And they bailed just a little too early, which is unfortunate for Stadia, and myself as a fan of Stadia. But it's one of those things, dude, they're saying we'll put it, it's just like they're tossing out money left, right, and center. Say, here, we'll be here, we'll be here, we'll be here, we'll be here. And I've never even heard of half of these cloud services, Scott.
Yeah, it's a surprise. We kind of, this has brought so much to light, and a lot of it is the competition that may be brought up, but it appears, and it's been my opinion, that Xbox has kind of tried to squash all of those issues, and
Yeah.
I can't see a better answer.
No, right? They just wanted, their goal has always been, and it seems for a very long time now, that they're just looking to be on as many platforms as possible, right? PlayStation has PlayStation, and that's the go-to platform for them. They now started to branch out into Steam, where we've seen Xbox go here, TVs this way, that way, and other services just to branch out as much as possible. As long as you have the Game Pass subscription model and an Xbox, or just even just the Game Pass alone, that's kind of really their goal, is to get you into the ecosystem and see where you can kind of carry over from there. But this continues because there's a lot more on the go here, Scott. But either way, as is entered in there, this court's responsibility is the case is narrow. It is to decide if, notwithstanding these current circumstances, the merger should be halted, perhaps even terminated, pending resolution of the FTC administrative action. For the reasons explained, the court finds the FTC has not shown a likelihood it will prevail on its claim this particular vertical merger in this specific industry may substantially lessen competition. To the contrary, the record evidence points to more consumer access to Call of Duty and other Activision content. The motion is a preliminary injunction, is therefore denied. Scott, one step closer, dude, to finally just calling this a day and wrapping it up.
Yeah, the song that never ends is what I've been calling it, and the silence is gonna be music to my ears now.
Yeah, it's one of those, it feels like it's been dragging on forever, and we're not even in the thick of it. Like, I can only imagine Phil Spencer and the rest of the team over there going on, but man, can we just get this all over with? Because the way they've been kind of prosecuting them over here, and just some of the stuff that's come to light from those who are actually on the board for the FTC and all this, I don't even understand how the video game industry works whatsoever. Because when they said, oh, so you just handed Activision $70 billion, he's like, no, that's not really how this works. Like, Phil had to explain it to them, like, no, it's like buying a house, it's an asset, right? And it was just, when you take a look at this, I'm like, this is the people that are trying to rule whether or not this is a good thing or a bad thing. Just makes me kind of put my hands up and shake my head. It's just, the sooner this is over, the better.
It does make a lot of sense, because the FTC, that's their job, to scrutinize big deals. That's fine. But they are not video game people. This is not a video game specific court judicial system, and that's very obvious. Absolutely.
I think it shows clearly, right? But Judge Corley has also clearly cited that Microsoft, on its commitments to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation and even extend the game to Nintendo Switch, despite the FTC challenging Microsoft's cloud agreements. Judge Corley took them into consideration in her decision. The court ruling even agrees with Microsoft in theory about the Nintendo Switch being part of the console market, but also accepts the FTC has reasonable claim it's not. Tell me how Nintendo Switch is not part of the market, as Tears of the Kingdom is still on #1 charts right now, Scott. Like, how is this work?
Is that a technicality? Just trying to say because it's mobile, it's not a console, in quote here.
It's a console.
That's still pretty silly. Yeah, and you can plug it. It doesn't have an HDMI port on it, but you can put it on a TV.
Yeah.
It seems pretty console-based to me.
It's just, oh man, I can't wait to have this all just wrapped up and we're able to move on and get everything going. Dude, I want to get into the rest of it. There's so much more. Honestly, go check out Tom's article. We could be here for the entire show talking about this, but I want to wrap up and get into Phil's statement, because he took Twitter and had this to say. We're grateful to the court for swiftly deciding in our favor. The evidence showed the Activision Blizzard deal is good for the industry, and the FTC's claim about console switching, multi-game subscription services, and cloud don't reflect the realities of the gaming market. Since we first announced this deal, our commitment to bringing more games to more people on more devices has only grown. We've signed multiple agreements to make Activision Blizzard games, Xbox first-party games, and Game Pass all available to more players than they are today. We know the players around the world have been watching this case closely, and I'm proud of our efforts to expand player access and choice throughout this journey. End. He quoted. So there it is, Scott. Seems like this is pretty much wrapped up. We are finally about to move on. What is the future? Here's the other side of it too. Don't forget, Activision Blizzard also have a whole mobile side that Microsoft doesn't have. And that's kind of really been the main focus. But I think the FTC has been focused so strongly on Call of Duty that they missed the other idea of where they're really heading.
Yeah, I feel like it was kind of a strange defense kind of hastily put together. And the FTC tried to really make that stick, but it just doesn't make too much sense to me.
No, not at all. We want to hear from you. Let us know your thoughts on all this. Are you happy we're finally getting to conclusion? Let us know over on Twitter, the official ITG. Got some exciting news and yet some sad news all at the same time. Co-president Evan Wells announces his retirement from Naughty Dog. This is over on the official website. Disappointing, man. I get it though, because after 25 years of Naughty Dog, I wanted to share. This is Evan Wells himself speaking. I wanted to share that with all of you that I've decided to retire at the end of the year. Oh man, I can't blame him though, Scott. 25 years. It's a pretty good run, especially at Naughty Dog. Dude, that's one heck of a company.
Yeah, that's pretty much my entire living memory, and that's gotta have been a comfortable living.
Yeah, that's a good studio to be a part of. There's no doubt about that. This is something that I've been discussing with Naughty Dog's studio leadership team for well over a year, and with Neil for even longer than that. The decision brings with it overwhelming and conflicting emotion, but I've come to realize that I'm content with my time at the studio and all we've accomplished together over the 25 years. I couldn't be more confident in Neil's ability to carry on running the studio. It's the right time for me to provide the opportunity for him and the others on the studio leadership team to steer the studio into a successful future. I kind of think they're already set, Scott. I'm just calling it right now.
Yeah, they're starting in a good place.
Absolutely. I've been making games professionally for over 30 years. Scott, he's been making games longer than you've been alive. And Naughty Dog has been my home for over half my life. I've seen the studio grow from a higher number 14, me, he says, during the Crash 3 days in 1998 to over 400 dogs today. Every major life milestone I can track with the Naughty Dog project. I met my wife during Crash Team Racing. Dude, what a great game that was. I love that game. We took our honeymoon after shipping Jack 2. Again, another... Dude, where's Jack? Bring Jack back. I kind of need him, man. I've been missing him for so long.
They never did a Jack 3, did they?
No. Oh, yes, they did. They did Jack 3. We didn't get a Jack 4. We were talking about getting a reboot with the Jack series, but then, you know, this little title called The Last of Us came out. May have heard of it.
Changed plans.
Kind of changed it all, right? He also went on to say, had our first child at E3, during E3, I guess not at E3, but we announced Uncharted Drake's Fortune, and our second child was born right in the thick of the development on The Last of Us. Working here has been awe-inspiring, and I have nothing but gratitude for everything that has been able to learn and be a part of. Scott, here's my question to you. And congrats to Evan Wells, first of all, right? Like, I think he's set the studio up, been a part of that studio for a very long time, and has a lot to be proud of. There's one of the top leading studios, not only for PlayStation, but in the industry alone, right? So,
certainly. Hats
off to Evan, and congrats. Wish him all the best in the future. Do you think he's done with games?
Ooh, well, after a 30-year career, I have a hard time believing that he's going to put it down right away, at least.
Absolutely. I think the other side of it too, right? I think he's ready for retirement, but maybe in a smaller scale for a studio. Does he start up a new studio? We've seen a lot of people move on and go, okay, I'm done. I'm going to walk away, but form a smaller, right? He went from 14 people to 400 people. Does he want to drop it down to maybe 10 or 20? Maybe make like a little indie title. I'm sure he's got games kind of just swirling up in his head that he'd like to branch out with. But Naughty Dog now is so focused on, we're probably going to get The Last of Us 3, right? I think that's just a given at this point. We're just a matter of waiting. I am curious to see where they take The Last of Us Part 3 because of the way 2 went, ended, and so forth. Do we get a branch story? We also know that Naughty Dog is working on, I believe it is a fantasy title, Scott.
That's right. I don't recall if we've seen any other information about that. Just that they are working on something fantasy related.
Yeah.
Now, do you think we're going to get factions? Do you think factions still exist?
Well,
I have my doubts.
Well, that is the sad part too to think about, right? Where is factions right now? Where do they lie? After bringing in Bungie took a look at the game. If you haven't heard, they took a look at factions and said, what's going to keep the players coming back? And it's like, no, that's not a good sign. So this is why we haven't really seen anything recently on factions. But then we did hear from the internal team as well, saying that, hey, what we have here is something really cool. I think everybody's going to enjoy it. But again, what do you say? Hey, we're making something that sucks. That doesn't really happen, right? So
yeah.
like, everybody's proud of what they make, which is always good. But I do have a lot of faith in Naughty Dog that they're going to be able to kind of turn this little hiccup around for them, hopefully, and give us a good, solid multiplayer game in the world of The Last of Us. Something that we've been waiting for forever, right? We have factions way back on PS3. We're kind of waiting for more Last of Us multiplayer, and when they said Last of Us Part 2 was coming, we're like, all right, cool, here we go. And then they're like, well, we're gonna have to delay. We're working on factions, but it's not ready yet. And then we've heard co-op is being mixed in here, and there's gonna be story elements. So there's part of me that like, I'm really excited. But if they can work alongside with Bungie, who's obviously crafted a games of service model very, very well when it comes to Destiny. I know there's got like its ups and downs like any other game, because one minute you're in and you're hooked, and then the next minute you're like, what are you guys doing over there? And then you're back in on the next one, right?
They update your gun and now it shoots ketchup.
Well, there's that, or they take out guns. Like, Bungie's hasn't been a smooth path, but they are definitely one of the leading charges when it comes to games of service model. And this is why PlayStation purchased Bungie, to bring them in as a in-house studio, a first-party studio, and hopefully this will lend well over to Naughty Dog as well when we get into factions, whenever that comes. Neil Druckmann said we're going to get it this year. At this point, Scott, I think we're getting it next year. I don't think we're getting it this year now that they've gone back a little bit to the drawing board.
Yeah.
And if this is what the time they need to do that, to make sure that we are in there for the long haul. Because how many times did we say we go into a live service game and there's just nothing there, right? At the end of the game, there's just nothing left.
It sounds like the scope of it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. So it does make sense that there are delays. I just wish I could see just a little peek on the inside.
Just tease us a little bit with something, right? Like, what are we kind of getting into? What does this world look like? Obviously, if you're a big fan of The Last of Us, like I am, Last of Us Part 1, Part 2 is my game of the year, and I can't wait to see where Factions leads. It just kind of leaves us up in the air, though, as to what does this Factions segment look like? Does it look like the factions we are used to, or it sounds like it's being built from the ground up and redone completely? So whatever you thought you knew, it probably isn't what it is now. So definitely a couple questions.
They skipped a whole console generation, so it does make sense. They're going to have to start from the ground up again.
Yeah, that's... I know, right? So now do they just push it to PS5 only, Scott?
I think that would be wise at this point. And limit the development you're doing, whatever that saves you, not having to bring it to old gen.
I thought after they wrapped up The Last of Us on HBO that they would lead right into this to keep us involved with The Last of Us and then get into The Last of Us Part 3. But it seems like there's a bit of a rocky road right now with development, and we'll see how that goes in the future. Fingers crossed though, man. Fingers are so crossed. Fingers, toes, everything else I got too. Scott, like we do, man, this is kind of going long already, but we got topic number 3 as The Last of Us showrunner Craig Mazin has reportedly removed himself from the Borderlands movie credits. Jordan Midler over at VGC. The Last of Us showrunner Craig Mazin has reportedly removed himself from the credits of Borderlands film. Spotted by World of Real, the award-winning showrunner will reportedly remove his name from the writing credits of the film and instead be credited under a pseudonym Joe Crombie. Why is he doing this, Scott? I'm kind of getting nervous, man, to be honest. It was reported in January that reshoots of the long in development adaptation had been taken over by Deadpool director Tim Miller. Deadline reported the original director Eli Roth has handed over the reins of the project for the final 2 weeks of shooting as he departs for a new project. Scott, what are your hopes for the Borderlands movie?
I really do have high hopes, but I'm nervous to kind of, with confidence, say that because I'm still getting used to video game adaptations being good.
Well, yeah, like The Last of Us set the bar high, and that was a TV adaptation, and Craig was heavily involved. To see him now remove his name to go to a Joe Crombie makes me a little nervous and skeptical as to what is going on here. Will they be able to pull this off? Borderlands is a beloved franchise, right? Like, that's the biggest thing, too. And there's been so many games now set forth in that. This is, man, this should have been like just easy to go with and make a film based off the Borderlands franchise and hopefully crush it. But we've seen so many failures when it comes to movie adaptations that we're kind of just, you know, hoping for the best, but not really counting on much.
Yeah, there's a lot of different characters that they're really going to have to nail properly, and I really have my doubts that you're going to do that properly, but we'll have to see.
Yeah,
it is a wacky world.
Well, Randy is involved too, right? He's the big shot over at Gearbox to be involved with the Borderlands title, so I don't know. Hopefully, time will tell, but it's been in development for a very long time, and hopefully we'll see it soon. Scott, my game of the year dude might be getting DLC. Final Fantasy 16's producer says the team is thinking about options for DLC. Michael Hardens over at PSU had this to say. Naoki Yoshida has revealed in an interview that Final Fantasy 16 development team are thinking about options for DLC, acknowledging that fans are eager to see more content for the critically acclaimed RPG. As you know, going into Final Fantasy 16, the one thing we wanted to create was a full, complete story. Something you can basically start from beginning to end in 100% without any DLC. And I think we were able to do that, said Yoshida. But now we understand we're getting feedback from players that have played the game, and lots of players want to see more. And we know that and understand that. For us, we're thinking about ways about how options moving forward. So hopefully in the near future, we can have something that we can give to all of you. Scott, dude, this is a complete story. So I'm as excited as I am to jump back into that world. Questions are arising. Where can we go next?
Yeah, how's that going to work in the story beat? Because if it is a complete story, as they say, are there room for expansion? Final Fantasy 15 had a lot of different DLC sections, but it would explore characters before you met them, or a big missing gap of story that was obviously included there for that reason. So I'm wondering how they're going to fit and sandwich this in, but everybody wants them to.
Well, yeah, the game is beloved, right? Like Final Fantasy 16, I think hit really, really well. There is a point A to point B with the conclusion, so it kind of like, dude, hands are up going, where are you gonna go? I think what they could do is do maybe like a prequel DLC and get into that side story, or do a whole spin-off story with some of the other characters. Options are there. Let us know. Have you played Final Fantasy 16? Scott, it's never a dull moment in gaming. What brand new games are out today?
We have Bug Snacks on the iOS.
Bug Snacks!
Lost in Play for iOS and Android services. Mordo is on the PlayStation 5 for the Xbox One, X, and S. And Oxenfree 2 Lost Signals is out on PlayStation 4, 5, the Nintendo Switch, a PC, Mac, iOS, and Android services. It's just about everywhere except for Xbox.
I noticed that too. That's a weird one. Let us know though if you're checking out Oxenfree 2. That's a big title. Well, that'll wrap up today's episode, everybody. Thank you for hanging out with us. This has been ITG Daily, the show that brings you the hottest in gaming news. We'll be back tomorrow. I'm Drew Bosley. That's Scott Savage.
We'll see you inside the game.